All right, so we need the origin story. Where did Claude Code come from?
By the way, it's crazy being here and hearing your guys' voices because I'm used to hearing it like from here.
And probably at 2x.
Probably at 2x.
2x, and with all the editing that we do on all of our little verbal tics and all that.
Yeah, it was sort of an accident in a lot of ways. So I joined a team at Anthropic late in 2024, and it was kind of a prototyping team. It was called the Labs team. We actually brought it back. And the idea was to figure out what's the next big product. And at the same time, we push the frontier of the model, and we figure out how do we improve the model to support that best, that future product that hasn't been built. And it's just hard to know which way to evolve the model, because until there's a product that really pushes the frontier, then you don't really know. And at the time, there was this just crazy feeling of product overhang that the model can do all the stuff that there's no product that has yet captured. If you think about coding tools at the time, there was autocomplete tools. There was you can ask the agent a question, but it couldn't write code.
Yeah,
and it's
Copilot,
because and until recently, the model just wasn't good. It couldn't really do it. And so we felt like there's room to just go all in, build a product that's just a coding agent. And we built it, and it kind of sucked at the beginning. It wrote maybe 10-20% of my code for a while.
Real quick, before this moment, what was the state of coding at Anthropic? How much of a focus was it?
So internally at Anthropic, we were using IDEs still at the time. But for Anthropic as a company, we've always cared about coding. We've always cared about tool use. We've always cared about computer use. This has always been kind of the core research direction, because for us, we exist to research AI safety. That's the reason that we exist. If you ask a random person at Anthropic, you just pull them over in the hallway and ask why are you here? They're going to say AI safety. That's the reason every single person is at the company. They deeply believe, including me, this is just the single most important problem to solve. And there's kind of a bunch of ways to solve it. You can look at kind of mechanistic interpretability. You can do alignment work. There's all sorts of ways to study the model in a petri dish. But fundamentally, you have to study it in the wild to see what it does, once it's safe in all these other ways. And so that's kind of where Claude Code comes in. But for Anthropic as a company, the direction has always been safety. And the way you study safety, it has all these kind of layers, including studying the model in the wild. And kind of what's a useful way to do that? It's coding, because that's the way the model interacts with the world. And so if you want to study kind of various sorts of model misalignment, you want to make it useful enough that people use it so that you can study it. Coding is just a very obvious application. So that's just, from the beginning, that's been the focus.
It's just such an unbelievably clean universe, because you've got all this training data. It either works or doesn't work. And depending on the language, it either compiles or doesn't compile, or it either, there's sort of a very clear pass-fail sort of ability to test it. And it's a very constrained universe of correct solutions. English there's an infinite number of correct, beautiful poems, but there's a very constrained, there's a non-infinite number of ways that you can write the correct code to solve a certain problem.
Yeah,
and there's sort of an elegance to using it as your petri dish, given that.
Yeah, that's right. There was Hofstadter. He's the guy that wrote Gödel, Escher, Bach. Did anyone?
Oh yeah. Great book.
Yeah, it was really good. But he wrote this other really weird book in the 80s about his idea about the path to artificial intelligence. Because he's a professor. He taught AI in school, and he was kind of teaching at the time. And he was talking about the basis of cognition, the basis of intelligence is recognizing patterns. And one way that he studied that is one of his hobbies was translating poetry from English to French. And a direct translation is rarely the right translation. There's actually a lot of taste that goes into it. And sometimes you want to fudge it a little bit so that the meter is good. And there's kind of various ways to do it. So yeah, it's a fuzzy problem. But coding is easier to solve, I think. It's also very commercially valuable. So it helps us kind of build a business. And it's also the kind of business that our favorite customers, enterprises, startups, companies have. And so it helps us have this kind of aligned business model, so we don't need to do ads, and we can kind of focus on safety, which is the thing that we care about. It helps us build a business where we can actually do that.
You came from Meta before coming to Anthropic. and you had a lot of focus on code at Meta. I'm curious, connecting the dots, looking back now, how did what you were doing at Meta help inform the beginnings of Claude Code?
For me, building dev tools has always been a side hustle. It was never the main thing. And I feel like that's the best way to build dev tools, because you want to focus on solving a business problem and building a thing that people love and that's useful for people. That's fundamentally what we're here for as engineers. You know, always YC like beats this into you. And, like, I feel this way.
Had you done YC before?
Yeah. I was actually I was the first hire at a YC company. This was back in like 2010, 2011, something like that. It was like one of the first few batches.
Wow, cool.
So for me, DevTools has always been this kind of side hustle, and I build product. And on the way to building product, if you know the DevX isn't good, then I'll build tools to make that a little bit better. And that's just always been the way that I approach it. And so here I just applied kind of that mindset of build the thing for yourself first, and then hopefully it's useful for others. And I was surprised to see that it is, which is awesome.
So you said it was kind of crappy at first, and you only trusted it with like 10% of your work, or only did about 10% of your work. What was the bottleneck early on, and how did you solve it to make it better? Because from what I understand, it's been like 6 months since you've written a line of code in your job.
Yes.
So that's extremely different than it only does about 10%. What changed?
I remember it. It was in May. It was Sonnet 4 and Opus 4. And then in November, it was Opus 4.5.
So it was just the underlying model changing.
It was the model. There's a lot of work that went into the harness. There's a lot of work into making Claude Code better. You know, like everyone likes to use this stuff differently. This is the thing about building for engineers. It's not a consumer product because engineers are so opinionated in the way they like to use stuff. And so, you know, we started with a CLI, but then we built a desktop app, we built a mobile app, we built iOS and Android apps. We have like Slack app, GitHub app. You can use Claude Code in whatever way you want. And so a lot of this was us innovating, learning, trying to figure out what features are useful. And this is like plan mode, for example, came out of this. A lot of different kind of tools and experiences came out of this. But fundamentally, when I think about the step changes and what % of my code the model wrote, it was just the model. Like the model got better and it just went up.
How tightly, to the extent you are able to talk about it, how tightly was the experience that Claude Code was having feeding back into the model work leading up to 4.0, 4.5, et cetera?
So everyone at Anthropic uses Claude Code every day. So the researchers building the model use Claude Code, and the people building the product use Claude Code. So that's essentially the cycle.
Do you have any metrics that like ways to numerically describe how much it's changed the company's trajectory? Like it feels from the outside that you guys are shipping a whole lot more product now than you used to. It seems reasonable to assume a lot of that is because you guys are using Claude Code all over the company internally. What's the right way to really grasp how much of that is attributable to Claude Code?
Yeah, so being at an AI lab, you get kind of used to thinking in exponentials. Essentially, all the charts are exponential. So we actually use like log linear charts for pretty much everything. So it's like x-axis is like linear, and then the y is like log linear. And so everything's kind of exponential. Like the revenue is exponential, the usage is exponential, which is just like the funnest problem as an engineer. And thank you for bearing with it. Essentially, like everything is going up, including the code. And so when we look at the lines of code written, the number of pull requests written by people at Anthropic since we released Claude Code, this has grown many hundreds of percentage points. I think the latest stat we shared was like something like 3x. But this is actually very, very outdated, so it's a lot higher now.
What was 3x?
The amount of code per engineer that everyone at Anthropic is writing.
I see.
So the size of the engineering team went up, like many multiples, and usually what happens as the size of the engineering team grows is productivity goes down. And when I was at Meta, one of my responsibilities was code quality for all the code bases. And the reason we cared about that was it's useful for productivity. If the code is high quality, it makes engineers more productive, and we kind of showed this empirically. And typically what happens is the code quality gets worse, productivity goes down. Another thing that happens is as the number of engineers grows, the productivity goes down. Because the new people are kind of asking engineers, like, how do I do this? How do I do this? So the engineers they're asking don't get to write code. And it takes just, it takes ramp up time. And the first thing that we saw at Anthropic is when new people join, the ramp up time is like 2 days. Because like this used to be weeks, but now it's 2 days because you just like ask Claude. And we still have to explain to new people that join the team.
Wow.
Like people ask like, how do I query the database? And the answer is open Claude, run it in the Claude Code base, and have Claude query the database. Because there's like a skill for querying the database, and it just knows.
So of the new engineers that you've hired in 2026, how many of them have written any code?
I mean, define writing code.
Right. That's wait. How do you define writing code?
For me, it's like engineering has always been my grandpa coded with punch cards. Like in the Soviet Union, for him, programming was like a paper thing, and like you punch holes into it and you feed it into this like big machine and it chugs for a while and it gives you the answer. That was coding.
Right. It's like my dad, who wrote a lot of assembly, would have like made fun of me for writing Python and be like, "You're not coding."
Exactly. It's like it's not for real engineers, or it's very high level. But this is sort of the nature of programming. Is the level of abstraction always goes up. So it went from like switches to punch cards to like assembly, then to like COBOL, Fortran, then Java and the high level languages, and then like JavaScript and Python, then the really high level languages. This has just always happened, and like I see what we're doing as somewhere on this continuum. So for me, the way that I coded a year ago was I wrote code with some kind of autocomplete in IDE. In November, I uninstalled my IDE because I wasn't using it. I was just, I was like, in the last month, I just haven't opened it, so I'll just uninstall it.
Wow.
At that point, I was running, maybe 5-10 quads in parallel, and my coding was prompting Claude to write code. Now it's actually leveled up, I think, again, to the next wave of abstraction, where I don't prompt Claude anymore. I have loops that are running. They're the ones that are prompting Claude and kind of figuring out what to do. My job is to write loops. And this is this kind of next transition that I think we're going to see in the next few months, and maybe through the rest of the year.
Wow. Hypothetical me, obviously not actual me, is an engineer who wants to join the engineering team at Anthropic. How do you evaluate me today?
I think something that I look for in our team in particular for Claude Code is we love generalists. So I think a thing that we started to see maybe 6 months ago is there were very few engineers on the team that were just doing engineering in the traditional sense of like, you have a user researcher, they talk to the user, and then they handed that down in a document to a designer who then made a mock, and then that went to a product manager, scoped it, and then it goes to an engineer for implementation.
I worked at Microsoft. I'm extremely familiar with this process.
This is what it used to be, but we just realized this is not what the team is doing anymore. And our team was always kind of more prototypey than this, but maybe 6 months ago, the thing we found is every engineer on the team does scoping. Everyone talks to users every day. People are doing design. Engineers, everyone on the team is comfortable like pulling data and doing data science work, building dashboards and things like that. So I think like we're kind of starting to see all the roles merge and kind of melt into one builder. I think like Satya calls it a builder, so it's something like that.
It's almost like a product engineer, but you don't even really necessarily have to be an engineer.
That's right. And like we have designers that are shipping code, our finance guy ships code. I think this
Our chief of staff ships code.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, all of our infrastructure at Acquired now is pretty rapidly shifted to Claude Code, which is why. Can I tell a little fun Acquired story? So we are an audio podcast. YouTube doesn't have a way to upload just audio. You have to upload something in the video. It should be interesting.
For a long time, it was just a black screen MP4.
So a transcript would be a good idea. But we don't have a transcript yet because it takes a week for humans to make the transcript. Fortunately, there's AI. Anyway, there's a whole like Claude Code set of scripts that I sloppily wrote, I in Claude wrote, and then at some point I sort of heaved it over to David and I was like, can you like continue working on this? And there at first a little resistance, but then you did spin up an idea, like open the terminal. One day
I took
after
CS classes in college, and that was the last time I opened a terminal.
One day after that, Cowork comes out, and the pitch for Cowork is it's if you want the power of Claude Code, but you don't want to have to deal with the terminal and typing commands and installing npm and blah blah blah.
We actually heard that David had to open a terminal, so we were like, we have to release this. We have one day.
So I want to use that as my hook to tell us the story of Claude Cowork, because to me it seems Claude Cowork is a much bigger market of people who don't want to open terminals than people who do know how to open terminals. It's kind of interesting that it went the direction of Claude Code first, and then to be honest, kind of a really long time before Claude Cowork came out.
Yeah, that's right. Honestly, it was this story. It was some version of this played out. In April, I remember walking into the office, and right next to where the Claude Code, a few of us sit, there's a couple data scientists. And I walked in, and one of the data scientists had Claude Code up on his screen. And this was back in the day when Claude Code was only available in a terminal. It wasn't yet available in the desktop app. It wasn't available in the mobile app. So you really had to know what you're doing. And I asked Brandon, dude, what are you doing? Are you dog fooding it, just trying to kind of figure out what this thing is? Because he just joined the team. And he was like, no, I'm using it for data analysis. And so he figured out how to open a terminal. He figured out how to download Node.js, because you had to do that. He figured out how to install Claude Code, how to set up an API key. I don't think we even had subscriptions then. And he was just using it to do analysis. And then the next week, all of the data scientists had multiple Claude Code windows doing their analysis, because it was just good at it. And then fast forward to maybe May or June or something, and there was some guy on Twitter. You guys see this? He was using it to grow his tomato plants. He had a little webcam, and he set it up to just monitor his tomato plants, and it was controlling the nutrition for the plants, and over weeks. And then at some point, the little tomato budded, and Claude was like, "This is so delightful. All our work is paying off." And I just saw this tweet, and I was like, "Oh my God, I think it's time." Now we're starting to break through to the mainstream. It took a while to get engineers to understand what this is, and finally they did. And now we're starting to see a critical mass of non-engineers do it. And when the latent demand is that strong, I think that just means it's the time to build a product. And so we started exploring. There's a bunch of different ideas. Cowork itself we built it was a little over a week, maybe 8-9 days, something like that. It was 100% built using Claude Code. It was one of a bunch of ideas. And as soon as we had it, we were like, this is it.
What were the other paths that you killed? Because if I were to describe the sort of creative brief as take all the power of Claude Code and make it available to people who don't want to open a terminal, it doesn't really translate one-to-one. You kind of have to be opinionated in the product that you build to bite off some set of the work that Claude Code can do.
Yeah, we tried, I don't even remember all the prototypes. We tried something, I think, that was based in Slack. And it didn't really work, because building Slack chatbots that feel good is just really hard. We tried something that was based on web. There was a bunch of different web-based prototypes that we weren't sure about, and none of them really felt great. There's something about being in a browser that just didn't feel really good. And it also, if it's in a browser, it doesn't have access to all your tools. So I have a Word document on my desktop. I can't tell something in the browser.
Right. File system access feels necessary.
And just that little bit of friction of having to drag and drop the file to the browser, that was enough to make it feel not good. And I think this is just back to the way that we think about product, is we build the thing that we love. And you want to build a product that you yourself fall in love with and that you use every day. And then maybe some users will like it too, and hopefully it's useful for other people too.
It has been surprising to me how my Claude Code usage has dropped because of how much Python gets written in Claude, the chat window. I'll ask it questions that require a lot of data analysis, and I can see it's writing some software right now to do the analysis, and then it's going to write a bunch of HTML and CSS and JavaScript and then render a brand new UI for me to play with it in. And that used a lot of Claude Code generation, although I never once interacted with Claude Code, the product, to have that be accomplished.
Yeah. There's this kind of interesting kind of theoretical thing about when do you want to do the computation? Do you want to do it in real time when you sample from the model and kind of do inference? Or do you want to kind of pre-compute so you can have the model write a program and then you can run that program repeatedly and that's free for you? And essentially we want to do the latter as much as possible, but really it's up to the model. This is just back to the model exists as software and it needs a way to interact with the world. Because it exists as software, the way it does this is coding. That's just kind of the natural language it speaks. It's the thing it understands. And so, from the earliest days of Claude Code, the very first version, I gave it a bash tool so it can run commands on my computer. I didn't tell it anything about the tool, and it just kind of figured out how to use it. And there's this anecdote I've told 1,000 times, but I asked it, like, what music am I listening to? And it opened up the bash tool. It wrote a little program that wrote an Apple script, and I've never written Apple script. And it wrote a little Apple script, and it opened my music player and was like, this is the song that you're listening to. And even back then, this was like Sonnet 3.5. That was not a very intelligent model. It was the best at the time, but by modern standards, it's not very intelligent. It just knew how to do this. So there's something about writing code. There's something about using tools to interact with the world. It's just something the model wants to do.
I want to ask, I'm going to come off of this product-specific questions for a minute to ask a little bit about culture and org design. You're a member of the technical staff. I think a lot of people have that title. What's up with that? What are the pros? What are the cons? Would you recommend that to this group?
Okay, so the worst thing that was pretty annoying when I joined is you message someone on Slack and it just says member of technical staff. And so you're like, is this person a designer? Or are they an engineer? Or are they manager? You don't know.
And what do they work on?
What do they work on? Yeah, you don't know. I actually really like it. When I was at Meta, something I really liked is every software engineer, their title is software engineer. There's no senior software engineer, principal software engineer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not a thing.
Huh.
And I like it because actually if you give people kind of senior titles, sometimes they'll give you bad ideas and people out of deference will just go with those ideas. Mm-hmm. But actually they should push back. And it's actually a really good cultural forcing function to put everyone on the same playing field in that way.
Does it come out though, okay, yeah, I know you're just a software engineer and I'm just a software engineer, but I'm well aware you're a level something software engineer, even though it's not in your title.
I think sometimes you know this, but oftentimes you don't. Yeah, I was when I was at Facebook, when I joined, I was an L4 engineer. And I had an idea, and then I found the VP of connectivity and went to him and was like, here's my idea, let's go build it. And he didn't know what level I am.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it was a bad idea and it didn't work. But then I did this again with a different VP, and then that also didn't work. But the third time it worked. And then we started a team and we started building stuff, and then moved on to the next idea. I kind of see this all the time now. People on our team, these kind of old seniority ideas, it's sort of it doesn't matter anymore in a lot of ways. These engineers that have 20 years of experience, 30 years, they have to unlearn so much. And you spend months teaching them how to unlearn all these old habits that just aren't relevant anymore. Whereas sometimes a new grad joins the team, and they will teach me something about how to use Claude Code better. Because they think about it natively, whereas it's not my instinct. And it's extra hard because with every new model, you just have to recalibrate and relearn. But going back to the member of technical staff thing, I think it's actually a really important thing because all these old distinctions about engineer versus PM versus designer versus user researcher, by the end of the year, it's gone. And so this helps us kind of very clearly see this and kind of act in this way today. And this is, I think you have to do within an AI lab is kind of push everyone to be more AGI build and think about the future more in this way.
I'm curious on that front, maybe generalize a bit, for all the founders, all the companies in this room. What should they be thinking about now for their organizations by the end of the year? What do you think that founders and companies are going to have to change in their mindset over the coming set of months?
I would think today the thing that I would do is I would give everyone as many, and I'm going to say this because I work at an AI lab, of course, but give everyone as many tokens as possible.
The more, to quote Jensen, the more you buy, the more you save.
The more you buy, the more you save.
So this is sort of the place that I would start, is give people as many tokens as possible, let them experiment. And the other thing I would do is underfund everything a little bit. So if you're working on a project and you're this feels like it needs 4 engineers, put 2 engineers on it and give them a bunch of tokens and have them figure out how to do it. And chances are they can do it. There's probably a bunch of stuff they can automate. There's a bunch of stuff they can streamline. And because they're automating it, they can do it better next time. It'll just be cheaper next time. And of course,
a compounding effect to...
It's compounding.
A compounding effect to having fewer resources besides tokens.
That's right. It's sort of in business and product, you make so many decisions, it's really good to have a set of principles. So you don't have to, you can lean on the principles and you don't have to make ad hoc decisions every time. And oftentimes founders and companies, they have these like principles documents. And so this is kind of like that. But the model can use these principles also, and it comes in the form of skills. And of course, like if there's some use case that takes off and uses a bunch of tokens, that's when you go in and optimize it and try to make it efficient.
But in general, if I were to parrot back the advice to you of staff with fewer humans, shift budget from humans to tokens, what the output of that is to raise your upfront costs but decrease your ongoing costs. Because you've already it's almost like pre-compiling. Like you've done a big pile of work up front so that the over and over and over again tasks are easy and streamlined.
Yeah. That's maybe a way to think about it. And because you put less people on it, that means the people at your company can do much more.
This feels like the biggest reckoning to me of building teams is people are pretty used to having a title and a discipline, and people take great pride in being a good PM. I'm going to write a bunch of blog posts and stuff about the discipline of product. There's a lot of those people out there. Or designers. I can't wait to show off my portfolio of my beautiful designs. And do we all just need to, within 12 months, shake off the idea that we are an anything and everybody is just this flexible bag of token generation?
Wow, Ben, you're so optimistic.
I might use slightly different words, but yeah. We should make a T-shirt out of that. I think it's something like that. So for me, I've been an engineer for a bit, but I've always worn different hats. I've started startups before, and I've been on the business side. I've worked on the product side. I've been on the user research side, on the design side. So for me personally, I just love building product. I don't care that it has to be an engineering hat that I'm wearing. And so it's sort of like right now I see that being borne out. So yeah, I feel like right now this is just the golden age of the generalist. People that want to do more than one thing, it's never been more fun. It's never been easier.
Maybe one more question we spoke about with Garrett a little bit. I'm curious your take on it. How do you think about taste, either you personally or Anthropic?
I feel like every time I think there's something kind of special about the way that I do coding, I'm wrong. I used to have all these opinions about the way that we write the code. I really like functional programming. And so, I'm a big I like Haskell and Scala and these kind of weird functional languages. And at the very beginning, I had this rule for our code base. We have no classes in the code base. We only have functions in the code base. Because that's the way that I write my code. That's the way that I like it. And on the weekends, engineers just started sneaking in changes that had classes. And I would find that on Monday, and then I would pull out the pull request, and I would be like, no, don't do that. And then at some point, the model started writing all the code, and it just started writing classes. And I was like, okay, well, maybe the model's right. Maybe this opinion's kind of stupid, and it's just this particular thing that I have, but in the end, it doesn't matter, because the business outcome is met. And it's met faster as a result. And the code actually is not bad. And obviously, the code's been getting better over time. And so I feel like every time that I have this kind of sense that I'm special in some way, I'm often proven wrong. And I think right now, kind of with the current model capabilities, something that people talk a lot about is the alpha is product taste. And I think this is also going to go away. This is the alpha today, but also, right now I have, a couple hundred Claudes running doing stuff. And a bunch of them are looking at Twitter feedback, and they're looking at GitHub issues, and they're looking at Slack, and they're figuring out what to build next. And right now, most of the ideas are bad, but maybe 20% are good. If you wait for the next model, and if you project out maybe 3 months, 6 months, most ideas will probably be good. And there's going to be some new thing. There's going to be something else that we're really great at. But I think in the long term, this kind of erodes.
And any guesses at what it is? Is there some final thing where humans are uniquely good at it?
I think the final thing that we're going to be teaching the model is values. And how to be, the way that we teach our kids how to be good people, we're going to teach the model how to be a good model.
Fascinating. Well, that is quite the place to leave it.
Yeah, Boris, thank you so much. This is fascinating.
Thank you.